Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard the Blue Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Joe. One of our features that people seem to like is Tales from the Road, where we're going to tell you some case histories of things. So, one of the things that I want to talk about, I mentioned it a couple times. This is my book, my most recent book, The Investigation. All right, it's from one of our sponsors, Blue 360 Magazine or Blue360media.com. Blue 360 Media is the leading publisher of all things law enforcement. We're working on adding more and more content. We're going to be going to video pretty soon so that there's video training, there's all kinds of things. And I want to thank them for being there for us. Now, the other sponsor I should mention right away is Medical Essential Diagnostics. Now, they are currently a New Jersey organization. So if you are any kind of a state, local, municipal worker in the state of New Jersey, you can go to them at no cost to you, and you get a free health screening for you and 2 adults in your house. So think about that. I know there's lots of programs out there. They have 5 offices across the state. It's pretty quick to get an appointment. And I have to tell you, I looked into some of their case histories, and there are more than a handful of people that went in there, let me go get screened, and found out they had something that would kill them. So medicalessentialdiagnostics.com. Go check them out. Save your life. Enjoy your career, enjoy your pension, and take 2 adults, 18 and over, with you. And it's no cost to you. So check them out. Now, Blue 360 Media, because they've always been publisher of books and everything law enforcement, one of the things that I asked them was, hey, how come we don't have more media? So now that's why we're going into video. So stand by for all that stuff. Now, the investigation. Let's talk about this. Is there a story that So that's what we do. That's what's interesting about the book. Everyone who's read it really likes the story because it's an engrossing law enforcement story. But the learning that's in here is excellent. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story that's in the investigation. Now, in the book, we have changed the names. Right? We've changed the names of the people in the book because some of the victims' family are still suffering from the crime that happened. So I'm not going to drag it all out and make a big deal out. Let me just tell you this. This is the story of a young man who killed the mother of his child and his 88-year-old grandmother. He killed them both using edged weapons. In other words, he stabbed the mother of his baby multiple times, cut her head, hands, and feet off with a big metal cleaver. His grandmother was home. She heard the commotion, looked in the bedroom, and saw him. And as she tried to flee, he killed her, cut her head, hands, and feet off. So it's an amazing crime to begin with. And when I say amazing, I don't mean wow. I mean it's an amazing event to look at, to see the depravity that some people can have in the course of their life. And because this crime was so horrific, it was so painful to the victims, I decided to change the names, like they do in a lot of stories. You change the names to protect the innocent. So the whole thing is here, we're going to call this guy Alex Merrill. I don't remember what I used in the book, but for telling you the story, we're going to go by that. Alex Merrill. Alex Merrill, 30 years old, and his girlfriend, Tina Jones. I'm trying to keep them straight when I'm telling the story so I don't forget. So Alex was in a family that the gambling work that was going on. And he was a made man from the Genovese family. He had a son, right, named Alex Jr., right? And Alex was a an associate. He wasn't a made man, and he was the bag man. And he would run around taking bets from people all over the place. And then when it was collection or payoff day, he'd run around and either collect or pay you off. And that was his gig. His son, Alex, is the killer in the story. And this kid was not allowed to be a part of the family business. This kid had a heroin problem, a cocaine problem. He was involved in all kinds of stuff. They wouldn't let him anywhere near the family business. So the story really starts to take off when Alex and Tina are really in the throes of heroin addiction, and they have a 7-year-old son. And the family realizes there's a problem, that they can't take care of the kid. You know what happens? Somebody strung out on heroin, they really can't take care of a young child. So the family steps in and takes custody of the child by an agreement. He'll go live with Aunt Mary or something or other because he can't stay in the house where Alex and Tina are living. Now, the house they're living in is a big, beautiful home. It's an older house, but it's, very, very large, very nice. And they live there with the grandmother, who's 88 years old. And we'll call her Jennifer. They live with Jennifer, the grandmother. Strange name for a grandmother, I know, but Jennifer. And she's 88 years old, and she lives there with the two of them. Well, at some point, Tina realizes she's going to lose her kid. She's caught up in all this heroin. She better get some help, and not one of them, stupid 28-day programs that do nothing for anybody, as we all know. She decides she better get into a real rehab and clean herself up. So she signs up for this rehab where you go in and you get locked down for like 6 weeks. No contact with the outside world, no phone calls, nothing. You are locked down. You go through treatment. You go through withdrawals. You go through therapy to try and help you figure out why you're involved with drugs and straighten your life out. It's a very strict program. After the 6 weeks, you get moved to a halfway house. And I believe this one was in Newark, New Jersey. You get moved to a halfway house where you're allowed to make phone calls. You're allowed to leave to go to work, and then you come back. So the whole idea is they put you back into society so that you start to become a productive citizen. You go to work every day, you come home, you go to work, you come home, right? You get used to the drudgery of the normal life that all of us have to deal with. So she decides she's going to do that, and she does. She signs herself up, and off she goes. Now, Alex, he decides he don't need it. I don't need that. I don't have a problem. Well, she's in there probably, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 weeks when he decides, yeah, I better do this too, or I'm never going to get the kid back. She's going to be straightened out and I'm a mess, whatever his thinking pattern was. And he decides, okay, I'm going to sign up. Well, he ends up in the same group home where they're locked down. But remember, she's 3, maybe almost 4 weeks ahead of him in the program. So while she's in there, they're going to therapy, they're cleaning up, they're withdrawing, they have medical people there, and also it's not a horrible thing, but it's bad for them, but they're maintained while they're there. Well, at some point while they're in there, they meet another local guy who's from the same area where they live. They didn't know him before this, but they met him in this rehab, and his name is Tom. We'll call him Tom. So Tom strikes up a friendship with Tina and with Alex, and the three of them are really helping each other through the process of healing and getting over their drug addiction. Well, Tom was probably a week ahead of Tina in the program. So at some point, they're in there together for a couple of weeks. They strike up a friendship. They're looking forward to getting healthy. And when they go back to their neighborhood, they're going to be friends forever, right? That's going to be great. So Tom heads off first. Boom, he goes to the halfway house where he's going to work every day and this and that. And a couple of weeks later, behind him goes Tina. Now, Tina is off to the halfway house, and she's doing her thing. And as we can tell, it went well. Went well for the both of them. And eventually, at the end of their 4 weeks, they were released to go back home to now live their lives with Narc Anonymous and all these other programs to help them and to survive now without drugs. Well, they do that. Now, you got to remember now, Alex is still in there by himself, and he's alone now. He's trying real hard to do the right thing from what we can tell, from information we got. Well, Tina, she's home, and Tom is home, And now Alex gets out of the lockdown part and he goes to the halfway house. And now he can make phone calls and, and of course he wants to talk to Tina. Hey Tina, how are you? What's going on? I'm doing so good. Our life's going to be great. You know the whole story. They're going to heal and be good together. Well, interesting. Every time he calls the house, his house, guess who's there? Well, if you said Tom, the friend, you'd be right. So sometimes Tom answered the phone. Sometimes while Tina is talking, she's, talking to Tom. And after a while, Alex is starting to be concerned about why this Tom is around every single day. And he starts to accuse her. What are you doing? Are you having a relationship with him? What's going on? That's not right. Why are you doing this? And she's professing, we're not having any relationship. We're just friends. We're trying to help each other stay clean. We're going to meetings, and this is hard. This is not easy. So that was the story for a couple of weeks. And from what we can tell, Alex went back and forth to work every single day. And he was almost through his 4 weeks, almost through his 4 weeks. And then whatever it is that set him off, whatever it was that set him off, he decided to sneak out of the rehab, drive to the Jersey Shore, and do a surprise visit at the house to see if Tina was with Tom in the house, because he fully suspected that they were having some kind of a sexual romance, and he was very, very upset and jealous. So how did he do that? Well, he left one night. He got out of the halfway house, got in his car, and drove to the Jersey Shore. Now he drove down here. It was June. It was the month of June. Now, if anybody knows New Jersey in the month of June, you know that it can be very hot and humid and sticky and all that kind of stuff. So he comes down and he drives all the way down. And we're thinking, based on our investigation, that he probably left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? Got out of there, snuck out, and starts driving down. When he gets to the house, he parks his car not in front of the house, but about 3 doors down. And he gets out of the car, and now he's going to sneak up to the house. So in the investigation, when we talk about this case, I lay out exactly what happens. And one of the key factors in investigating this is that his timeline was a train wreck. He was telling us initially that he had been home for a couple days and this and that. And we said, well, we found his car. Why didn't you park your car in the driveway if you were home? Why is it up the block? And why are the headlights on? See, so we kind of knew that he came in the middle of the night, because in New Jersey in June, the sun is coming up 5:45, 5:30, right? So you don't really need headlights unless you're driving earlier than that. And these were not automatic like the new cars. You had to turn them on and turn them off. So seeing the car parked away kind of gives you a presence of mind of his thoughts, right? He wants to sneak. He doesn't want somebody to see him coming up to the house. And he has the headlights on. Well, he must have been so caught up in his thoughts, he didn't even think he just got out of the car and went to the house. Now we know based on our investigation that he went to the side of the house where there was a porch, and there was a porch light above that, right? So you got to picture it's 3 a.m. It's very, very quiet. And he goes up, and what's he do? He unscrews the light bulb, right, to make it even darker so somebody driving by wouldn't see him. He can't get in the house because he doesn't have keys for the house, and the door's locked. So what does he do? He opens the kitchen window, which is right next door to the porch, where he used to climb in the house as a kid when he was sneaking out. And he climbs right into the house across the kitchen sink, and he's in. Now he's in the house, and it's quiet in there. So on the first floor, you have a living room, a dining room, a den, and the kitchen. Upstairs are all the bedrooms. So while he's in that kitchen, when he first got in, he goes to a pantry, and it's a big walk-in pantry, not like a little thing where you have spices and stuff. You walk into this thing, and there's cooking implements, pots, pans, all kinds of stuff. And he takes off the wall a gigantic steak knife with a big giant blade, big triangle blade on it, right? One of them big old blades with big wooden handle. And he also takes a meat cleaver, kind of like the kind you see in a cartoon back in the day, the big square metal head, right? He takes those two things with him, and he goes to go find Tina and Tom, because he assumes they're in the bed sleeping, thinking he's ensconced in a halfway house, and they're having their affair. Well, as he makes his way through the house, he gets to the stairs and he goes upstairs nice and quiet. Now, when you got to figure there's bedrooms on both sides of the hallway, and at the very end of the hallway is a big bedroom, probably 18 by 18. That is Alex and Tina's bedroom. That's the room that they use. The other bedrooms are used by other family members when they live there. Grandma lived in one of the rooms on the side, and she had one of the side rooms in the hallway. And as he's going up there, he hears the TV playing and he sees the light flickering on the wall, and he looks in the bedroom expecting to see, I guess, what he's expecting to see. And there's Grandma sound asleep, and there's Tina sitting in the chair. She's sound asleep. So what it kind of looked like is that Tina was in there with Grandma, talking to her, spending time with her, and they both fell asleep. So with this, now Alex starts screaming and hollering because he's enraged because he thinks there's an affair going on. He looks in the bedroom, doesn't find Tom in there, but now he's screaming at her. And it gets so bad, they end up going into their bedroom. Now, Grandma's awake by this point. And a couple things that we found out from the interview with him afterwards, but that Grandma wore hearing aids, right? But she never put them in. She never used them. They were always charged, but she never used them. According to her family, Mom never used them. That became an interesting part of our investigation, helped us bring out some information. So you have to picture this now. It's the middle of the night. These two young people are in the bedroom screaming and hollering at each other. He's making accusations. She's making denials. They're having fights. And at some point, he takes this whole thing of pictures, family pictures of her and him and the baby and their other cousins and everybody that they had set up in boxes or whatever. And he throws them on the floor because he's enraged. Look what you're doing to our family is what we can imagine was going on in this argument. According to him, he kind of gave some of that information. And at some point, being so enraged, he took the big long blade and he stabbed her. He stabbed Tina in the chest. He stabbed her a couple times, and then down she went. She fell right on top of the pile of photographs. Now she got two massive stab wounds, so she's bleeding out. While she's bleeding out, there's screaming and hollering going on. And then we know from the autopsy that the rage that he must have felt is he stabbed her 33 times, including while she was laying on the ground, stabbing her so hard that the knife went through her and was sticking into the pictures in the floor. Now, when I try and teach about that, there's a couple things here to consider. Number one, using a knife, right? A knife is a personal weapon of destruction. Now, maybe he didn't have any access to a gun, so he chose a knife. That's what he was going to probably go after Tom with, if he caught Tom there. Right? But this rage turned on to Tina, and he stabbed her. Now, if we were in a fight, you would stab somebody once so that, they would get away from you. If they keep coming, you might stab them a couple of times, but that's it. They start to bleed out. They fall down. You leave them alone. The fact that he went down and started stabbing her repeatedly is a psychosexual element of the attack. Now, one of the things we know is that when people are in a relationship together, heterosexual relationship, homosexual relationship, it doesn't matter. When they're in this relationship together, that's an intimate personal relationship, when there is violence and we see people attack other people and they use a knife, that knife is very important because while it is an implement, simple as that, it is also a phallic symbol. So we know that sexual assault is not about sex. Sexual assault is about power. Well, in this instance, that rage and that blade and repeatedly stabbing someone is a power that you're taking over them. And when it's sexual, you have a sexual relationship with them, it is a phallic symbol that you're using to show dominance and power over that person. All right, so he stabs her 33 times. Now, from what we found in the interview, what happens next is that the screaming and the hollering must have been so powerful because Grandma got out of bed, put her hearing aids in, and most likely went up to the door and was listening. And then you got to imagine it got quiet. It got very quiet. And she pushed the door open and she looks in, and there is Alex standing over Tina, who's got a knife sticking out of her chest, obviously dead. And Grandma says, "Did you kill her? Did you kill her?" And he says, "Yes, I did." And at that point, Grandma turns around and says, "I'm going to call the police." Now she's 88, she's very frail, and she's shuffling down the hallway. Now you got to imagine this hallway was probably 25, 30 feet long. Then it went down 13 sets of stairs, 13 stairs. There was a landing at the bottom. It turned right, and then there was 3 more stairs into the living room. So, like I said, it was a big house, so they had a big set of stairs going up. Well, Grandma shuffles away, and Alex is busy standing over Tina. And at some point, he realized she left, and she's calling the police. Well, he gets up and he runs after her, and he catches up to her uh, on the platform. Now, according to him, he just wanted to stop her from going, and he grabbed her. And when he did, the knife went across her throat. But because she was so elderly, it cut her head right off. And her head dropped and bounced down the 3 stairs and went underneath a table that was right at the bottom of the stairs. And at that point, she had bled, that initial bleeding, because bleeding stops once the heart stops. But that instantaneous decapitation, she probably pumped out a few times, and there was a big puddle of blood on the landing, and then she dropped, right? So now you have to figure, here's a guy who went there angry and enraged, and his idea was he was going to catch his girlfriend with another man, a classic jealousy kind of a situation in domestic violence, right? And he shows up and he goes off and he kills the girlfriend. He kills Tina. In rage, he stabs her 33 times, showing dominance over her. You are mine. How dare you have anybody else? Even though she denied it. Then when Grandma was going to call the police, he panicked, because I don't know that he went there to plan to kill her. I think that's something he decided on the spot. I think he went there to confront the boyfriend, because he never told us that he went there to kill anybody. He went there to, confront the boyfriend and catch them in the act, basically. So maybe in his mind there was, what people say, if I ever caught you, doing this and that. So maybe that's what he was saying when he got there. So what we pieced together from the next part of the incident is that Grandma is laying in the living room dead, decapitated. He went back up to the bedroom where Tina was, and now he's trying to think of what he's going to do. He just killed 2 people in a brutal fashion, and he has to decide, what do I do? Do I give myself up? Do I take off? Do I move the bodies? All of these kind of thoughts going through his head. And at some point, like I said, he had that big that meat cleaver. He goes back upstairs and he cuts Tina's head off. Now, cuts it off of her body, and actually put it to her left of her body under her arm. Not like she was holding it like a Halloween toy, but just that's where the head ended up. Then he used the cleaver to chop off her hands and her feet, and he gathered them all together in a spot. Then he went downstairs with Grandma, and right on the living room floor, he cut off her hands and feet and put them together. Well, on our timeline here, this is all taking place probably over the course of the night. How long they argued or were together, you can go back and forth, but we're figuring this time when he was actually dismembering the bodies was probably around 8:30, a quarter to 9, because Jennifer, the grandma, her brother, Bill, came every morning at 9 o'clock for bagels and coffee. And here is Alex, the killer, dismembering grandma on the floor, and there's a knock at the front door. And he looks outside, and oh, there's Uncle Bill. So in the course of someone being enraged, you have to figure there's an arc to it. He was probably amped up. That's why he went down there, getting himself all worked up, went in, got into this argument. He peaked, killed her, killed the grandmother, and now he's coming down the other side of that arc. And he is now considering consequences. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And when Uncle Bill showed up, the story takes a strange turn from what you may expect happen. I think if Uncle Bill had been able to get in the house on his own, he would have been the third victim. But the fact that he was outside knocking on the door in public, Alex left the house through the side door by the kitchen, went around to the front and said to Uncle Bill, believe it or not, do you have a phone? Now, he must have looked strange, Uncle Bill must have been a little bit in shock because Alex, when we found him shortly thereafter at the scene, he was covered in blood, bits of bone, and chunks of human flesh from hacking up two bodies. And he says, "Do you have a phone?" And Uncle Bill says, "Yeah." He goes, "Give me the phone." He dials police headquarters. This guy dials police headquarters. The dispatcher answers and he says, "Hey, there's two dead bodies in this house," and he gives the address. And then he hangs up. Now, the address was well known to all of us in our department because, like I said, it was a known organized crime family, and we had interacted with them many times. Matter of fact, the bag man's son, Alex, the father, we had taken him off a couple times on gambling cases, and we've actually confiscated over $1 million in cash based on the investigation. So we knew the family very well. Everybody knew, they knew the police. We knew them. So everybody in the department knew the address. And when they called it out, headquarters calls it out and says, respond to this location. There are two dead bodies on scene. I can tell you that all of us, we were in the detective bureau having our morning briefing, and we hear this call go out, and we heard the address, two dead bodies. We made the assumption, oh, that must be Alex and Tina. They probably overdosed and died. We had no idea they were in rehab, you know. So we hear them, and we hear the patrols heading out there. And interesting enough, we had a morning narcotics unit running around for heroin people. And one of the officers on that detail was somebody who went to high school with Alex. And he rolls up to the house first, and here's Alex walking out to him, maybe heading to his car. We're not sure. But this officer sees him, sees the blood, the bone, the chunks of stuff and blood all over him. And he says, "Alex, what the hell happened?" And the truest thing that this guy said until he confessed later in the day, he said, "Tim, I killed her. I killed that bitch." Now, that's an interesting statement. That's a statement of anger. This is the mother of his child that he loved. He wanted to rehab for. He wanted to come home, and he's calling her a bitch. So that shows you that leftover resentment and anger was really, really strong in this guy. And Officer Tim sees this guy with all blood and everything on him, handcuffs him and throws him in the back of a police car. And then says, "Headquarters, I have Alex here. Send me the detectives," right? Well, two other patrols, a sergeant and another patrol officer, go in and start searching the house when they see this. And they find the grandmother, and then they find Tina on the second floor, and they report two bodies decapitated, send the detectives. So at that point, we were gathering our equipment. We were heading out there to the scene. So that's the first part of the story. And in the next episode, we'll talk about part two. But interesting in the dynamics here. You had drug addiction, you had jealousy, you had domestic violence, you had a organized crime family, which is what led us to believe that what he was doing by dismembering the head, hands, and feet from the victims. The grandma's head came off when he, at least that's what he told us, when he split the knife across her throat. She was so frail, it just came right off. What we think he was doing was reminiscent of old mafia movies, mob movies. He was going to take the head, hands, and feet and go dump them somewhere so that the bodies couldn't be identified. That's what it would look like. Then we assumed he would get back in the car and return to the rehab or go to his job after he cleaned up and be as though he knew nothing about it. He would get a phone call. "Oh my gosh, there's been a murder in your family's house, and grandma and your girlfriend are dead." But he never got that far because Uncle Bill showed up with the bagels and the coffee. And that started the events of the day. We think he was going to go back and fall back on, I don't know anything about it. And we would have seen it. The police would have said, "The head, hands, and feet are gone. This got to be a mob murder." And they were going to try and take the body. We couldn't identify who was who because we also found down in the basement around the sump pump. They had a sump pump in their basement. There was a can of gasoline and newspaper stuffed into the sump pump. And he would never admit to doing that. And we talked to his family. They said, "We didn't have put newspaper in the sump pump." We don't have gasoline down there. That's the basement of our house, right? So we're assuming that that was his goal. He would take the head, hands, and feet, take them away, then he would burn the house to the ground. He would get himself out of there, and it would have the appearance of a mob hit. Somebody came in and killed these people and then burned their house down. But his plan never got to go that far because, like I said, Uncle Bill showed up, and we happened to have a unit out there right away, and the officer that saw him got to high school with him. So at this point in the investigation, you got to figure he's sitting in the back seat of the car, covered in blood, bone, all kinds of human flesh and whatnot. We have a crime scene in the house, and we have the detective. They cleaned him all up and took all the evidence and got everything off of him. And then we had him in for the interview, and that was a very interesting interview when I tell you what happened there. So we're going to leave it here for now, but that's Tales from the Road, and this is a Murder at the Jersey Shore. We'll get back with part 2 very soon.